It's the Dean's List on Bermuda College Radio. Live 4.0, powered by the great folks at One Communications. One gives you more.
Yes, yes, yes. It is the Dean's List on Bermuda College Radio, Live 4.0, proudly powered by the great folks over at One Communications. It's your girl, DJ LA, and I am joined in studio by a very, very, very special guest, actually. I'm actually going to give you all a little backstory in a little bit, but I am joined in studio by Major Dwight Robinson, the Regimental Career Management Officer. My lord, that was a
It's a
mouthful.
mouthful. Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I have never been better. Never been better.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So now this is a little different because usually around this time, it is January 17th. Usually around this time, you know, we have some bright-eyed and bushy-tailed privates up at the Royal Bermuda Regiment or up at Warwick Camp, going through 2 weeks of of fun. Let's go with that. However, it's been changed. We have recruit camps starting in February now.
That's right.
February 12th to the 26th. So tell us a little bit about that, because that's a major change. That's a major change.
You know, the difference now in the post-conscript regiment that we are is that we find ourselves trying to be inventive about how we can better attract people into the regiment. And what we found is that post the Christmas window, we need a little bit of extra time to get people in their frame of mind of volunteering into the regiment. So we shifted it from what would have been a week and a half in some instances of the new year in January, give us a few extra days to work toward attracting folk into the regiment. And so we shifted it to later in February. And it's still not as beneficial as we would like it to be, but certainly it takes a little bit of the pressure off of getting everyone in a very short period of time at the first part of the year.
Okay, it makes sense. It does make sense. I mean, speaking from being a private and then eventually becoming a member of the RTT, it does help a little bit, given that extra time. You come back from, eating all that turkey and yams and the ham and cassava pie. So, okay, let me get back in shape because, I'm about to have some bright-eyed and bushy-tailed civilians about to be privates that, we have to whip into shape in 2 weeks.
There you go. So, tell your listeners what RTT stands for. I know what it stands for.
So RTT stands for Recruit Training Team. As I said, I wanted to give you guys a backstory. So I served in the Royal Bermuda Regiment from 2009 until 2019, and around this time I would be a little bit further back. Let's go from last week Friday. I would be racking up to Warwick Camp for the weekend that is about to be recruit camp, and Sunday morning at 0700, I will be getting ready to march out with my CSM, which is my company sergeant major, and to stand on the square and wait for CSM to give that order to the provo, those magical 4 words: "Provo, open the gate," and receive some new recruits. And might I say, serving for 10 years, what was originally supposed to be 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days, ended up being 10 years. I can definitely say that each and every year it was something. It was something. You would think that for doing it for so long, you'll get used to it. But no, every year was, I feel like my CSM would say the same thing. Every time it was that little, okay, what can I expect for the next 2 weeks? So, needless to say, as I said, it turned what was supposed to be 3 years actually turned up to being 10 years.
Mhm.
My dear. So, sir, just give us a little bit of I mean, I know what to expect, but just give them a little bit of insight of what the recruit camp or the 2 weeks looks like from February 12th to the 26th.
Let's do it this way. Instead of going right into recruit camp, let's rewind it a little bit and kind of contextualize the conversation. And that is today we're looking to attract folk into the regiment. So let's talk about that part first, and then we can talk about what actually happens in recruit camp. As I mentioned earlier, the regiment now is into the post conscript version of itself. So we've got to spend time making the organization attractive and saleable to those persons who might like to come into the regiment, either because they have a genuine interest, or two, because they're not sure what the regiment is about and they just need a little bit more information. So I want to first frame out, as you mentioned, the length of time of service is 3 years and 2 months. Now,
Okay.
most people say 3 years and 2 months, and they get like deer in the headlights. And I have to contextualize that. From the start of your service to the end of your service is 3 years and 2 months. You don't actually serve for a full 3 years and 2 months. If we break that period down to the span of a window, I've got this virtual background in the back, so it's not working out quite so well. If we break that span of time down, the actual service time an individual would put in over the course of a year works out to be just over 6 weeks if they put all of their time back to back. That includes your 2-week mandatory training period that we do every year of your service. Doesn't matter whether you've been in for 3 years and 2 months, whether you've been in 30 years and 12 months, or whatever it is, which will be 31 years, wouldn't it? Everyone is required to do a 2-week training package. In addition to that, the regiment construct of the regiment these days is that each company, the regiment is divided down into groups of people that we call companies. Each company has a particular training schedule, and that schedule alternates between A company and B company. In the main, 1 month, 1 weekend of the month, A company will do their training, and the next weekend of the month, B company will be their training, and that continues throughout the course of the year. So you take all of that time and you compress it down into one compact window. The entire time of service only ends up being about 6 weeks, or just under 6 weeks. That time is also interspersed with the occasional training night throughout the course of the week. Those who have been around for a little while will remember that training was every Monday night, or every Tuesday night, or every Thursday night for the duration of their service time. That has been tweaked a little bit. So it gives the individual more time to themselves, and it also allows us to get more training time in the between time. So there's a fringe benefit to readjusting the schedule that way. In terms of the types of service people that we are looking for, the regiment is not solely a group of soldiers that are running through the trees with weapons, bayonets fixed, advancing to contact. That is a part of what we do. You would know as well as anyone else.
Yes.
But that is not solely what we do. In fact, I won't say a lot, but a fair portion of what we do does not involve weapons, does not involve cam cream, does not involve camouflage, although our uniforms are camouflage. We have responsibilities in motor transport. We have responsibilities in accounting. We have responsibilities in logistics and supply chain management. We have responsibilities in media and PR. So anyone that has an interest in those areas, there's an opportunity for you to come into the regiment, lend those services. Or if you don't and you would like, then you say, hey, sir, this is what I would like to do within the confines of the regiment. How can we get to that space? How can I find an appointment within the regiment that would help me to develop my skills in media, in photography? And not so much with the more technical pieces, because we kind of require those skill sets from the beginning. If you're talking about musicians, for instance, we certainly welcome musicians into the regiment, but for the amount of time that we have to prepare for events, it's difficult to take someone that doesn't already have a musical skill set and scale them up to where we need them to be. So in those instances, we need for them to already have that skill set. Same for motor transport. If I need a truck fixed, I need a truck fixed now. So for me to take the time to teach you how to pull the engine down, to fault check it and then put it back together and then test a vehicle on the road, we just don't have the time and capacity to do that. So there are some areas that require that skill set to be in position in the first instance, but then there are other areas like medics, for instance. We train medics from never having held a sphygmomanometer before, and most people won't know what that is. It's a blood pressure cuff. Most people won't have operated those before, but we give them opportunities to learn how to use the medical equipment, how to assess a patient, and to take the appropriate actions. So that is that part. So if your listeners have an interest in those areas, then you know what? The regiment is a place for you.
Absolutely.
Best part of the learning exercise within the regiment, and it's just come about in the last couple of years, is our learning credit scheme. The learning credit scheme. The learning credit scheme within the regiment is a mechanism by which we provide a support system for individuals that want to increase their academic vocational skill sets. Now, it's broken down into 3 areas. First is a standard learning credit. The moment you sign on the line and come into service in the regiment, you are eligible for $250 per year for the first 3 years of service. If you want to study basket weaving, fill your boots. Go study basket weaving. We give you $250 for it. I know you've got a program that teaches people how to become DJs, for instance. Yes. You can apply this $250 to that skill set. So it's a great opportunity for students, for soldiers to lean into the organization to help them become better versions of themselves. In the next increment of years, that goes up to $1,000 for 3 years. And then the next increment, it goes up to $2,000 per year for 3 years. So if you play the game right, you conceivably could walk away with $9,750 worth of tuition provided for you by the regiment to learn whatever. I won't say whatever you want to learn, because in the higher level, there is some criteria, but certainly an opportunity for you to learn new skill sets and develop yourselves so that down the road, you can become more saleable. We teach people how to do this right here. This, can't see my hand, the chainsaw training. We teach the soldiers how to do that as a primary part of our humanitarian assistance and disaster relief responsibilities. So we give you skill sets, to work within the constructs and confines of the regiment, but also skill sets that you can take away from the regiment. So I think that's a very important piece for your listeners to understand.
Okay. So, I mean, that is, you just taught me something. I mean, like I said, I've been out since 2019. Mm-hmm. So, and I know before I left, we were starting to move to the area of, non-conscript and whatnot. And mm-hmm. it's something to actually hear, how the regiment has now, I guess, shifted gears, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I actually think that would be super beneficial to the people of Bermuda. Absolutely. So much so it almost makes me want to come back.
It's never too late, and interesting you would say that. We're, in addition to looking for new recruits, we are also looking for those persons who have served previously to come back and lend their skill sets. And we have a number that we determine keeps us at the level of being operationally capable. And we're a little bit below that now. And each recruit camp, we get closer to that number. Then over the course of the year, it falls back. And each recruit camp, we get closer to that number. And that cycle just continues. Ideally, we would be just over that number. We can tolerate being just over that number in terms of our cash limits. But when we get too far, and the same in any organization, we're not exceptional in this particular matter. The same, if we get too far below that threshold, then we become operationally inefficient. So we want to stay away from that. So we're encouraging yes, new recruits to come in, but two, those persons who will have been in service previously to consider, hey, I might like to go back, even if it's just for a year, 2 years. If we have 50 people that decide to come back for a year, that's quite a number of asset, that human collateral that we can lean into our operation. Anyone that is legal resident in Bermuda is eligible to serve. So that's Bermudian, that is a permanent resident certificate holder. If you're a spouse of a Bermudian, for instance, if you're a contract worker, anyone who is legal resident in Bermuda is eligible to serve within the organization.
That's good to know. So don't be surprised if you see me rocking up next month. Coming back.
Make sure you put my name as a referee.
Of course, sir. Of course. So, tell us a bit about recruit camp and what the listener can expect for the 2 weeks that they will be in recruit camp.
So recruit camp is an interesting time in the lifespan of a service individual. I say interesting because as you're going through it, you absolutely loathe it, you despise it. But then once you get out of the back end of the recruit camp and you get a little further down the road, you look back and it's just a complete giggle. And anyone who's done recruit camp, which is pretty much all of us, will tell you the exact same story. It's a hurdle while you're doing it because it immediately forces the brain into a new space, and anything new is going to be uncomfortable for a little while. Absolutely. We challenge the individuals physically as well as mentally. We challenge them socially because now, if you live on your own, you've got to live in a room with 24 other people. So that takes some little adjusting. Well, probably not 24 because we break it out. But the point is you're in a social environment that is outside of your normal. So you've got to make the mental shift to be able to accommodate that within your own psyche, so that the entire team can actually function together toward the mission and goals of the platoon commander, of the company commander, of the commanding officer. So broadly speaking, it's the most intense part of your military career because it's all new. In that period of time, we teach you basic flat foot drill, and that's turning to the left, turning to the right, turning about, marching all together in a uniform and soldier-like manner. We teach you how to use weapons because that's what we do. It's using weapons in a responsible manner. It's not this gang. And I use this term. Please take it for what it's intended. It's not just this arbitrary stuff you're out there and just popping off just because. Yes. We're shooting for a purpose, a specific purpose, and we'll learn about the white card. We'll learn about the policies that regulate our operating weapons in Bermuda. We learn about how the military organization works, how you take an individual who becomes a section, who becomes a platoon, who becomes a company, who becomes a battalion. We teach you all of that. We teach you the history of the organization, the roles and responsibilities of persons up and down the organization. Now, all of the boring stuff that comes along with being a soldier, but things that you need to know in any event. So that's one aspect. Another aspect of recruit camp, and you know what? I think most people, I don't know, you tell me, what was your recruit camp like, both during as well as after, in retrospect to the recruit training part, but then also from the perspective of an instructor in recruit camp. You tell us what that experience is like, because it's easy. It's okay to come from me, but nobody wants to hear from me. It's my job to tell you the party line, right?
Absolutely.
But someone, the layperson, I use that term respectively, of course. The layperson like yourself, tell your listeners what that recruit camp is about, and let me help you to embellish your story.
Absolutely. So for me, for when my recruit camp, when I first signed up in 2009, to be quite honest, I could not wait for it to be over. Like you said, it's meant to. I don't want to say it's meant to break you, but it's meant to get you out of your comfort zone and then put you
Mhm.
back, if that makes sense. So it's meant to kind of, all right, you know what? I'm not used to doing this. I'm not used to getting up this early in the morning. I'm not used to doing these physical capabilities of running up
Mhm.
and down and marching with a rifle. None of that. However, after the 2 week camp, like you said, it was like, huh, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Yeah, okay, I survived. That's exactly what it was for me. It was like, all right, well, if I can survive this, I think I can survive anything.
Yeah.
And then, throughout my career as a private, it was like, again, you're constantly surprising yourself,
Mhm.
because it pushes you to, like you said earlier, be the best version of yourself. So to go from that to then become a lance corporal or a lance jack, as we say, to now actually being an instructor, and once being in a new position or a new role, and seeing them come in, I'm like, man, I was in your shoes. I kind of, I kind of get it. And then getting promoted to full corporal, it's like I said, every year, no matter how many years I'd done it, it was new. It was new
Mhm.
for me. Even though I've done it for 10 years, it was something that was new
Mhm.
every single year. And it was a rewarding experience nonetheless, don't get me wrong, because
Right.
I mean, I've learned so much from the regiment that I still apply to this day
Mhm. Mhm.
in my daily life. I always have had this thing: if you're not 5 minutes early, if you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. I always have that ingrained in my head, especially when it came to time management, and just the basics of life, if you will,
Mhm.
survival
Mhm.
skills.
Yeah.
Hurricane. From your background picture, it was always a rewarding experience. And I have forged lifelong friendships, not just
Mhm.
skills, but friendships as well.
Yep. Yeah.
It's funny because like I would see, one of my comrades, in passing, and it would be the bring A, and it would just you constantly have that rapport with someone
That's
for
right. Yeah.
lifelong,
Right. Yeah.
and whether it be those that I did recruit camp with, or those that came in and came up under, under well, I was mostly in the office, but came up under when I was in RT, well, recruit training team, with my fellow comrades and the like.
Mhm. So I want to piggyback on 2 points you made.
Mhm.
The first was recruit camp forces the mind into a different space. We teach people effectively. We teach people how to think like soldiers. Um, some people will try to put that into the bucket of brainwashing. No, we don't change your independence of thought. That's not our objective. Our objective is to lean into the differences between you, me, and everybody else in the platoon, lean into those differences, get them to recognize what the commander's objective is, and then apply our skill sets to achieve that objective. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, Brainwashing is something slightly different. We try to sanitize your thinking altogether.
Yeah.
That's not what we do. That's the first one. And the second one, I can't remember the point you made later on. Just slipped my mind. It'll come back to me in just a minute, in just a moment. But yeah, it's a great opportunity. Oh, I know what it was. One of the things that we find when we do our surveys, every now and again, the PR guy will send out a survey. One of the things that we find, both with service persons as well as persons who have since left the service, is the relationships that they
Yes.
strike within the organization. That is a common thread all the way through. You meet some incredible people, and I mean
Yep.
incredible in every sense of the word, some incredible people throughout your time within the organization. even if they don't know your name, they recognize your face. They see you down the road. They stick your hand out. Hey, sir, how you doing? Okay, I'm a dinosaur. I've been around forever, so everyone knows this mug. But they may not necessarily know my name. And
Right.
because we're getting probably less now than previously, we're getting 20, 50, 100 new faces every year. It's difficult to keep up with all of those names, despite our best effort. But that is the one thing that a person coming into warrior camp will lean into, will recognize once they leave. And as I said, even while they're here, the relationships that you strike. We've got a member in the band now who she's been interviewed, and the point that she made is but for her experience in the band, who are now two of her best friends she never would have met. So, I mean, that's the kind of relationship that is struck within the confines of the regiment. But again, I think that leans into the point I made earlier of finding yourself in an environment where you understand how those people around you think. And because you understand how they think, it's much easier to relate to them. Whether that's on the social level or even if that's on a professional level. If I hire you to do a job, whatever the job is, X, Y, or Z, and I know that you've been in the regiment, without even saying anything as far as the job is concerned, I know that I can communicate to you in a particular manner that you're going to get it.
Yeah. And
you know that because we have that relationship, that the language that I use to communicate with them, you understand that, so you're going to get it. And there's that level of trust that already exists from the very beginning. So yeah, relationships are critically important and a fantastic byproduct of the regiment.
Absolutely. Speaking on that, on a job, actually, I would never forget. It was when I came into recruit camp in 2009, and I had a job interview during recruit camp, and I would never forget. I went in my uniform, and I didn't even have to say a word. I'm not saying this would happen for anybody else, but I didn't even have to say a word. As soon as the employer saw me in my regiment uniform, he was like, "In the regiment?" It's like, "Yes." He was like, "Consider yourself hired." Literally, that's how it was. I didn't sit. It wasn't even an interview like normally how an interview would take 5 to 10 minutes. He saw me in my uniform and he was like, "Consider yourself hired." No resume, no nothing. It was. And I'm not saying that it may happen. It may not. I don't know, but it goes to show you how much of the regiment what the regiment can actually do for you. I even after that, when I did transition into a new role, with a new company, I should say, I had got my stripe, or my Lance Jack stripe, and again, it was immediately, well, you're hired. No interview necessary. Just seeing, Royal Bermuda Regiment, or at the time, Bermuda Regiment on my resume and in my cover letter was just enough. And needless to say, I was with that company for a while, and actually when I left, they were kind of sad to see me go. But nonetheless, is more to than just, like you said, shooting rifles with bayonets fixed. Is much more to that, much more in the regiment than that. That plays a huge part in your
True story.
civilian life.
Sorry, yeah, we certainly advantage our soldiers out in the job market, because employers understand that, to the point I made earlier, employers understand that the typical soldier have a very methodical way of thinking and approaching their work, particularly the higher you go up the command structure. We don't teach our soldiers what to think, although sometimes we do. We tell them what to do, but we teach them how to think about the problem. And employers lean into that, and that's That happens here in Bermuda as a byproduct of service within the Bermuda Regiment, but it also happens in other jurisdictions. A lot of the larger corporations, many of their senior executives are former service persons because of the manner in which we've learned to think and the manner in which we've learned to approach a problem and finding solutions to those problems. And I think that's the underlying factor there. And we'll talk about officer training in just a second, if you don't mind. We have a means by which we look at the issue. What is the issue that is before me? What are the resources that I have to address that issue? Now, it may not be that I have everything that I need, but I have what I have. I need to figure out a way to fix this. And if we subscribe to this philosophy of failure is not an option, you can only take what you've got in your hands at any one particular time and fix the issue. So my point is that the employers recognize the bent that we have to solve a problem, regardless of what assets that we have to solve the problem with. We'll find a solution. And if we can't find a solution, we make a recommendation for what the solution might want to be, which leads me on to the officer training piece. By and large, we've spoken about the infantry training or the enlisted training. I think it's important for your listeners to understand that there are two different types of soldiers. One is the enlisted soldier, which is a private soldier that goes a private lance corporal, sergeant, warrant officer, that side of the conversation. And on the other side, you've got the officer track. They come in maybe as a private soldier, skip to officer cadet, and then go off to Sandhurst and do the officer training package, come back as a lieutenant, captain, major, and if you're lucky, then off to lieutenant colonel, which is the senior rank within the Bermuda Regiment. Two different types of soldiers within the organization. On the enlisted side, you have effectively the doers. These are the people that are responsible for the tactical and the operational part of what we do. On the officer side, you have the strategist. Those are the people that think about the why. So you've got the how and the what on one side, and you've got the why on the other side. These are the politicians, if you will, and just for the sake of the argument, I'm using that term. These are the politicians that the CO gets his instruction from the governor. The CO then says to the company commanders, right, this is what we need to do. Off you go, bring me a plan. And then the officers have time to figure out what this thing is, the problem is, how they're going to address it. And then they hand that problem down to the warrant officers and the sergeants, and they figure out how it's going to get done. So you've got different groups of people for different things. The officer piece is not something that we've spent a lot of time trying to pitch in the community. So I just want to take a moment to do that. The officer training piece typically is a little longer than the infantry training role in the first instance, in as much as once you've completed recruit camp, you then go on to do the Sandhurst officer training. And that's an 8-week intensive in Camberley in the United Kingdom. And they teach you everything that you need to know about human resource management, about leadership, which we do at all levels. But at the officer level, they lean in a little more intensely to the leadership portion. You learn about tactics because you have to understand how your soldiers work in order to give them the appropriate instruction. And you also learn about strategy and all of that. So you come away from that training package, and at the end of it, you come back to Bermuda, you sit before the board, and the board gives you a recommendation to the governor, who issues a commission. This is the Queen's Commission. Same as anybody else that goes to the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, and the British Army. The piece of paper you have looks just like the piece of paper that they have. Take that conversation back to the conversation we had a few moments ago about employment. If you work for a corporation and you're in at the corporate level, or even if you're not, particularly if it's a British or a European organization, and they see that you've been to Sandhurst, they know that they have something special. So again, you get a leg up over everybody else. If you have two people that come in with the very same skill set, and one of you has a certificate with Sandhurst on it or military training, that person is going to be just above the other person with the exact same skill set.
Okay.
So encouraging folk to consider and lean into the officer plot is also important for our recruiting conversation as well. It's not just boots on the ground. Sometimes you get to sit in a nice or a more comfortable space, and you wax philosophical about the hows and whys of what it is that we do.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Well, sir, thank you so much again for coming through and sharing the insight on the new
Great, great.
Royal Bermuda Regiment. I definitely am considering coming back. I don't know. We're gonna. I have to talk to the spouse and see if talk it out. But and make sure that my schedule is aligned with it. That's
Absolutely, absolutely. Great.
but yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I
That's
appreciate you having me on in your show. Yeah,
absolutely,
I'm
sir.
sorry. You were
Absolutely.
saying? Mhm. No, I do appreciate you having me on your show. It's another opportunity for us to tell our story and give a little bit of insight and information about what it is that we do. We didn't talk about dollars and cents though. Let me do that real quick before we sign off. If that's okay.
All right. Yes.
The regiment pays its work. We pay our soldiers every time you put on a uniform, every time you come into work, you are compensated. As a starting soldier through the front gate for the first time, your pay package is just about, I want to say, just about $950, between that and $1,000 for the week's worth of service. So you extrapolate from that the amount of time you would achieve on the weekend, the amount of pay you would accrue on the weekend or on a drill night. It's not a full-time employment. That's important for folk to know. It's part-time service. So for the 2-week period, you'll get $1,000 per week. Extra to that, for whatever time that you work, you're paid for that period of time. So you take that $1,000 divided by the amount of hours that you put in. If it's a 3-day package, then you divide that time by 3 days training, and that's what you get paid. If it's a training night, it's probably a quarter day or a half day. You divide that by that portion of training, and that's how much you get paid. So on average, a person can look to probably take home $200 in a month for the amount of training that they do. But again, it's important that folk understand that it is not full-time employment. I say that because there are folk that do come in, oh, I thought it was full-time service. No, it was never full-time service. So it's important that folk know and understand that. Okay, so that's it about the pay piece. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for all of Bermuda, all aspects of Bermuda, to develop themselves, develop their person, become better versions is a term that we used earlier, become better versions of themselves, serve the Bermuda community. And in serving the Bermuda community, they are able to take away a better skill set that allows them to be more fulfilled in their commitment to themselves, their commitment to their families, their commitment to Bermuda.
Absolutely. That's good to hear, sir. Thank you so much again for coming through and
Thank you for having
sharing
me.
that insight for us.
Sure.
So just again to reiterate, recruit camp is on February 12th until the 26th. And for more information, you can log on to www.rbr.com or call 238-1045. And I'm sure one of the company clerks or company personnel will be more than happy to assist you.
That's
Anything
it.
before we go?
BermudaRegiment.bm. Click to join the link, and we'll get back to you, and we'll get you through the process. We're trying to get everyone processed by January 26th. So
Okay.
ensure you get in, and ensure you get in early, so that we can get you through the process. There are a couple of steps that the individual will need to take, but they're not difficult. Again, BermudaRegiment.bm. Click join us on the top right-hand side, or you can call us at Warwick Camp 238-1045, 238-1045, or Bermuda Regiment at gov.bm. any of those will get you to my desk eventually, and we'll give you all the information that you need in terms of signing on to become a part of Bermuda's best part-time job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks again for joining us, sir. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks very much.